He was powerful, wealthy, and respected, a man who thought he had seen it all. But when the millionaire CEO stepped into his sleek black car, he never expected a voice so small, yet so fearless, to shatter his world. A little black girl looked straight at him and told him to shut up. It wasn't rudeness. It wasn't random. It was a cry born from pain, injustice, and a truth too heavy for her young heart to carry. Why would a child dare to confront a man like him? And what secret was hidden in her words? For years, he had lived the life most people could only dream of. A millionaire CEO, polished suits, glass towers, and the kind of respect that followed him into every room. To the outside world, he was untouchable, successful, disciplined, the picture of control. His car was his sanctuary, a place where he could finally breathe after long days filled with boardrooms and deals. That evening was no different. He slid into the backseat of his luxury sedan, expecting silence, comfort, and the hum of the city outside. But not everything that night was ordinary. Parked near the curb was a figure small, fragile, yet strangely steady. A young black girl, no older than 8 or 9, stood waiting. She didn't belong in the glossy world he had built for himself, and for a moment, he barely noticed her presence. But fate was about to draw their paths together in a way he could never imagine. As the driver closed the door, the CEO leaned back, mind already drifting to the next day's meetings. That's when he heard a voice, sharp and unshaken. Breaking the silence, the little girl wasn't begging. She wasn't asking. She was challenging. And the weight behind her words would drag him into a truth he had spent his whole life avoiding. The CEO blinked, stunned. No one had ever spoken to him like that. Not colleagues, not rivals, not even strangers. And yet, here was a little black girl, her voice unshaken, slicing through the quiet with words that didn't just startle him, they unsettled him. He wanted to brush it off, to laugh at the absurdity. But something in her eyes stopped him cold. They weren't the eyes of a child trying to be rude. They were the eyes of someone who had seen too much, carried too much, and had finally broken. Under the weight of silence, the driver shifted uncomfortably in the front seat, muttering about getting rid of her. But the girl didn't move. She stood firm, her small hands clenched at her sides. "You think you're safe in here," she said, her voice low, but each word sharp enough to cut. "You think none of this touches you?" The CEO's chest tightened. He had built his life on walls of money, power, influence, believing they could shield him from the uglier truths of the world. Yet here, in his own car, a child had just torn one down with a single sentence. And then came the story. Broken, halting at first, but heavy with truth. She spoke of her father pulled over for a broken taillight, questioned for nothing, handcuffed in front of her while she cried in the back seat. She spoke of her mother followed in a store, accused of stealing when all she wanted was milk and bread. She spoke of herself called names in school, pushed aside, told she would never be more than the color of her skin. Every word was a blade, cutting deeper into the CEO's composure. He wanted to deny it, to tell himself these were isolated incidents. But he couldn't, not with the way her voice cracked when she described the night her father never came home. Silence filled the car, heavy and suffocating. The CEO's pulse quickened. He felt anger not at her, but at the truth he had spent years ignoring. He realized he was no longer in control of this moment. This little girl was. And the more she spoke, the more powerless he felt. The driver tried again to intervene, reaching for the door. But before he could, the girl leaned closer, her words trembling with fury. "You sit up there in your tower, counting your money, pretending you don't see us. But we see you. We see everything. And one day, you're going to have to choose stay silent or speak." The CEO's throat tightened. He had never been given a choice like this before, not in business, not in life. And as her words echoed inside the car, he realized this wasn't just about her or her family. It was about something much bigger, something he had spent too long avoiding. The question now was, would he walk away, or would he finally listen? The CEO sat frozen, the weight of her words pressing heavier than any boardroom negotiation or billion-dollar deal he had ever faced. But then she did something that shook him to his core. She reached into her pocket and pulled out a crumpled photograph. Her tiny hands trembled as she held it up, a man in uniform, smiling with the same sharp eyes she carried. "This is my dad," she whispered, voice breaking. He never came home. The world around him seemed to stop. The polished leather seats, the tinted windows, the hum of the city outside, it all vanished. All he could see was her face, streaked with tears, and that photo, creased and worn, like it had been clutched too many times on too many nights of waiting. Her voice grew louder, shaking with a fury far too big for her small frame. "They said he resisted. They said it was his fault, but I was there. I saw." He begged. He begged them to let him live. The CEO's throat tightened. His chest burned. For the first time in years, he couldn't hide behind numbers, contracts, or glass towers. The truth was raw, undeniable, and sitting just inches from him. The driver looked away, his knuckles white on the steering wheel, as if even he couldn't bear the weight of her pain. The air in the car turned suffocating, and then the girl's eyes locked on his, unflinching, demanding. "You think you're powerful, but real power is what you do when no one is watching. So tell me," her voice cracked but held steady, "will you stay quiet like the rest of them, or will you finally see us?" The question hung in the air, sharp as glass, impossible to escape. For the first time in his life, the CEO realized he had no answer. Asterisk, the car ride ended in silence. No more words, no more questions. Just the weight of what had been shared and what couldn't be unseen. The CEO didn't say anything as the little girl turned and walked away, the photograph still clutched in her hand. She didn't look back. She didn't need to. Her message had already shattered the world he thought he knew. That night, he didn't sleep. He couldn't. Her voice echoed in every corner of his mind, every tear, every word, every truth he'd chosen to ignore for the sake of comfort. For the first time, he faced the reflection of who he really was, a man who had benefited from silence, a man who had stayed in the tower while others bled in the streets. The next morning, he canceled his meetings, not for rest, but for reckoning. He walked into his own company's boardroom, stared into the eyes of the people he once led without question, and told them, "We've been silent too long. That ends now." He didn't just write a check. He launched programs, changed policies, put real power and real protection into the hands of those who had been ignored for too long. And every month, without fail, a donation was made in the name of one little girl's father, a man the world never truly saw. But this story isn't just about one CEO or one girl. It's about all of us, about the moments we ignore, the voices we silence, the truths we bury. Racism doesn't always scream. Sometimes it whispers through inaction, through comfort, through convenience. So now the question is no longer his. It's yours. When the next voice speaks up, trembling but fearless, will you listen?